Hi, my name's Nicola Kefalianos, a Gen Z uni student wanting to get onto the impossible feeling property ladder. And this is my dad, John. He's a mortgage broker and a property developer.
Thank you, Nicola. John Keflianos here, and today we're going to be going into building inspections, Nicola.
So I found the perfect property I love. What do I do next? I need a building inspection.
This is something that I definitely recommend. Even if you might think you're buying a brand new property and you only need building inspections on old properties, but any property that you're looking at buying, I'll definitely recommend getting a building inspection because it's important to use professionals in their field, and building inspections are important to be conducted by a professional building inspector.
So what's the purpose of a building inspection?
They basically go through the property and find any issues with anything relating to that building. For example, water pressure or any cracks in the building or any insulation that's not been done properly in the roof or
Joinery.
any joinery or any drawers that aren't closing properly. So they'll look at every part of the property in detail and write you a report to point out any faults with that property.
So how much does this tend to cost?
Depending on the property and where you are, that can be anywhere from $400 up to say $1,200.
And does it differ depending on how big the property is?
Definitely, because the bigger the property, the longer
More
it's going
time
to
it's
take
gonna
them.
take.
So I would recommend getting a building inspection on every property that you are looking at that you're serious about. So don't waste money getting a building inspection if you're not generally going to be making offers or bidding at an auction potentially.
Only serious
Only the
properties.
properties that you're serious about definitely trying to get.
So what should I ask the inspector?
So the first question you should ask is if there are any structural issues with the building.
With structural, you mean the roof, the foundation, the walls?
Correct. Yep. So the main structure of the building. So not the internal, just the main structure.
And why would I ask that?
Because they're the issues which would potentially cost a lot of money to fix if you had to, and you really want to know if that structure of the house is sound.
So what would you say the most common structural issue is?
I'd probably say to do with the foundations of the property and whether they have dropped at all over time. That's probably the first thing that the inspector should look for, is whether
There's been movement in the
there's been
house.
movement in the footings and the footings have dropped. Yeah. The other one is the roof and the structural integrity of the roof. So the trusses, the way they've been built, make sure they've been built to code as well. So they're probably the two main issues that a building inspector would point out.
So what's the second question I should ask the inspector?
You should try to get an understanding of what the cost would be involved in repairing the problems. Now, a lot of inspectors might not tell you the price,
Yeah.
but try to get that out of them because they would have a fair idea, although it might not be accurate. And if the problems are significant, I'll definitely then recommend getting a builder in to quote that repair up. So try to get the costs out of him.
And how would I approach that? Just be like, is this going to cost $30,000 to fix?
You could work that approach and say, and they might come back to you saying, no, it's only going to cost $15,000. So they might be hesitant to give you an exact figure because I don't think legally they're allowed to tell you. But if it is a major problem, they'll probably even say to you, I would think
Recommend a
builder out there to look at the problem and give a quote for it.
Lastly, what type of things would be in the builder's report?
So first of all, they'll talk about the structure. Then they'll provide a maintenance list of things that aren't working properly in the house. For example, it might be the kitchen door's not shutting properly, or it could be the bathroom tap's leaking, or it could be there's a slight hairline crack in the gyprock, or it could be that door is jammed.
And should I be concerned about all of them or not?
Depending on how major those problems are, but generally they're more cosmetic problems which
can be fixed.
Which can be fixed. So every house will have movement. So, for example, a jammed door isn't a major problem. It can be fixed. Or it could be that the tap's leaking in the bathroom. No big problem. A plumber can fix that. So if they're minor problems like that, I'll definitely make the real estate agent aware of these problems because it's a way of you negotiating a better price. But I wouldn't be too concerned for anything that's not major. So anything that's cosmetic that you can fix, don't just walk away from the property because of that reason. An area the building inspector will look into is the bathrooms in particular, because you need to make sure that the waterproofing has been done properly, there's no leaks anywhere, there's no cracked pipes in the walls. So that's one thing that the building inspection will have. Generally, they do come back with a high moisture reading in bathrooms, but that's because it is a bathroom. And if you are concerned about cracked pipes, you can always go to the next level and get a plumber out there and actually test the water pressure in those pipes. So it's just something to be aware of that sometimes does come out in the property report. But again, it's a way of you sort of reducing your risk in buying that property and knowing what are the major issues that you definitely won't go ahead and buy that house, and what are the minor issues that you know that can be fixed.
If there are major issues, will the inspector notify you and be like,
Definitely. Yep,
do
that's
not
their
do
role.
this?
Yep, that's why you're paying a professional who Here's a builder that knows what they're looking for.
So if the inspector does come back with major problems, what should I do?
Being that you're a first home buyer, I'd probably walk away. You are looking at buying this house to live in.
And not to bulldoze.
And not to develop or as a short-term investment to develop later. So if you are looking to buy this property to live in, I'll be walking away. It's different if you're looking for a development site because you don't really care about that property. You're just going to be demolishing it and subdividing it. But in your situation where you're looking to buy the house to live in, I'll definitely walk away if it's got major structural problems. The other problem there is, Nicola, if you're a first home buyer, you're normally limited on your deposit. So if you had to fix a problem up, and let's say it was $30,000, you're going to have to come up with an extra $30,000 to fix that property.
Yeah.
The bank's not going to lend you that money because you're already lending to your maximum amount possible anyway.
And I'm just going to have to find the cash to do that myself.
So it will be a problem for you to be able to fix that property.
So then in that case, you walk away from the deal.
Yes, I'll be walking away from that deal.
So I also forgot to ask this. When should I actually get the building inspection done?
Yeah, very good question, Nicola. So it depends on how that property is being sold. For example, if it's being sold at auction, you would have to get that inspection done before the auction. So if you're serious about buying the property and bidding at auction, you would have to get that building inspection done before the auction. But if the house is going for sale where you're making offers on that property, I would be arranging that building inspection once your offer is accepted.
Okay.
Because there's no point spending money on a building inspection if you're not going to get that property. So
and between the offer being inspected and me signing papers, for example, how long would that take? How long would that give us?
I would be lining up the building inspection pretty much at the same time as you making the offer and having that offer accepted. Okay. But having that as a condition in the offer. So subject to building inspection within 3 days, for example.
Okay.
So make that clear to the real estate agent so then they know that
you're only going to proceed with the build.
Correct. Yep. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other option is you can have that building inspection done in the cooling off period, which we will go in later, and the cooling off periods are different in every state. But for example, here in South Australia, you've got 48 hours to cool off on a property when you do buy a property. So you can arrange that building inspection within that cooling off period.
Instead of the subject to.
Instead of subject to building inspection. So for example, here in South Australia, when you make an offer on a property, you've got 2 clear business days to pull out of that contract. So cooling off period is 2 clear business days. Mm-hmm. You can arrange your building inspection in that time frame and not have to put that subject to building inspection on the contract. But every state is different.
We'll go into that a bit later.
We'll go into that in one of the other episodes.
So what I've learnt from this episode is that a building inspection is a must, especially on old properties, but as well as new properties, because there can still be problems with new properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
And if there are major structural issues with the property, it's probably best to walk away from the deal so it doesn't chew into my deposit.
Yep, very good, Nicola.
Thank you everyone for listening, and make sure you get a building inspection done, especially if you're keen on a property.